The fire burned low, not loud and not wild, just steady, breathing in the dark like it was alive. The kind of fire that did not light the woods, only enough to remind you how much darkness there really was. Someone said the quiet always felt heavier after midnight, like the night itself got closer, like the dark leaned in. And that was when the story started. Not the fun kind, not the joking kind, the kind people only tell when they feel like they have to. It started with a house, an old one at the end of a dirt road, trees growing so close to the walls they brushed the windows when the wind moved. The kind of place where the air smells old even when it is clean. Someone stayed there after their aunt passed away, just for a few weeks, just to sort things out. At first, nothing felt wrong. No noises, no creaks, no cold spots, no shadows, just silence. Then one night, just after midnight, the hallway light turned on. Not flickering, not dim, fully on. They got up to turn it off and noticed the switch was already down. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same brightness, same silence. Eventually, they stopped turning it off. It felt wrong, like turning it off would be rude, like interrupting someone mid-sentence. Then the footsteps started. Bare footsteps, slow, dragging slightly across the floor, not heavy, not rushed, just patient. They always stopped outside the bedroom door. Never opened it, never knocked, just stopped and waited. One night, a voice came with them. Soft, tired, familiar. It asked if the back door had been locked. It was their aunt's voice. The next morning, the back door was open. After that, the house stopped pretending. Cabinets opened on their own, photos turned face down, rooms felt occupied even when empty. And the hallway light stayed on every night because whoever was still there did not like the dark. Later, someone else spoke up, said not all hauntings happen in houses. Some happen in places people forget, like hospitals, an abandoned one, boarded windows, rusted signs, silence that felt too clean. They went in as a joke, phones out, laughing, daring each other to go deeper. The air inside felt wrong, not cold, not warm, just empty like the building had been hollowed out. Every patient room door was open, except one. At the end of the hall, closed, clean, the handle warm, recently touched. They opened it and found nothing inside. No bed, no equipment, no stains, just a single chair facing the corner. Then the door slammed, every phone died. The breathing started. Not loud, not close, everywhere like the walls were doing it. When the door opened again, the hallway was gone. No windows, no exits, just doors, rows of doors, identical, all slowly opening, one by one. The fire popped, someone laughed too hard, the nervous kind, the kind people do when they are trying to break tension they cannot control. Someone said ghosts do not usually follow you home. And that was when another voice cut in, quiet, steady, and said sometimes they do. It was an apartment, cheap rent, too cheap, quiet neighbors, too quiet. At first it felt peaceful. Then the mirror started acting strange. Every morning, the reflection lagged just a fraction of a second behind movement, enough to notice, enough to feel wrong. At night, the mirror stopped reflecting. It showed the room empty, even when someone stood in front of it. One night, they woke up unable to move, sleep paralysis they thought, until they saw the mirror. Their reflection was sitting up, smiling, slowly raising its hand, waving goodbye. The next morning, the mirror was gone. No broken glass, no marks, just a faint handprint on the wall from the inside. By then, the fire was lower, the woods quieter, the dark thicker. Someone mentioned a road outside town, a road nobody remembers driving onto. They said if you are alone after midnight and your radio cuts to static, you will see a woman on the shoulder, not waving, not moving, just watching. Most people drive past, some slow down. The ones who stop do not talk about it. But one man did. He said she appeared in his back seat instead. Not a reflection, actually sitting there. Wet hair, empty eyes, silent. When he slammed the brakes and screamed, the car was empty, except for the handprint pressed into the glass behind him from the inside. Then the night kept going. Because the stories always do, someone talked about a hiker who followed footprints that were not his, always just ahead, always just visible. They led him into fog, thick fog, white fog, the kind that eats sound. They led him to a cabin that was not on any map. Door open, air wrong, smell wrong. Inside, breathing, not his. The door slammed, the forest outside disappeared, and no one ever found him. Another voice said some places do not kill you, they keep you. Like the motel on the edge of town, room 213, tapping on the wall, rhythmic, intentional. The TV turning on by itself, static clearing into a face, pale, cracked, smiling. The motel burned down, the room did not. Sometimes he still dreams of it. Sometimes he wakes up and sees it in the corner of his own bedroom. By now, no one was talking much. The fire was mostly embers. The woods felt close. Not loud, not moving, just present. And someone finally said the thing nobody wanted to admit, that the stories were not the scariest part. It was how familiar they felt. Like memories, like warnings. Like reminders that maybe fear does not come from monsters or ghosts or shadows, but from the quiet realization that something has always been here, listening, watching, waiting, and the only reason it has not touched you yet is because the night is not finished. The embers shifted, glowing red beneath the ash, like something breathing just under the surface. No one added wood, no one needed to. The fire stayed alive on its own, like it wanted the stories to keep going. Someone finally spoke again, quieter than before, like they were afraid the dark might hear them better now. They said the first time they realized something was wrong, it wasn't fear they felt, it was recognition. It happened in their childhood home, years after everyone had moved out. They went back alone, just to grab a few things left behind. The house was empty, stripped, echoing in a way that made footsteps sound like someone else walking behind you. They stood in the living room, keys in hand, when they heard it. A chair sliding, slow, deliberate, heavy against the floor, from the dining room. They called out just once, expecting an echo, expecting nothing. Something answered. Not a voice, not words, just the sound of breathing. Close, too close. They left without locking the door, without grabbing anything, and told themselves it was their imagination. That night, they dreamed of the house. In the dream, every room was dark except the dining room. The chair was pulled back, and something was sitting in it, facing the hallway, waiting. They never went back. Another story followed, almost immediately, like the silence was getting harder to sit in. It was about a security guard working overnight at an office building downtown. Empty floors, flickering lights, the kind of job where nothing ever happens until it does. Every night at exactly 2:17 a.m., the motion sensor on the 12th floor tripped. Every night without fail. He checked it the first time, empty cubicles, silent halls, no broken windows, no signs of anyone. The second night, same thing. The third, he stopped going up. Instead, he watched the cameras. At 2:17, the feed from the 12th floor flickered just for a second. Then something appeared, tall, thin, standing between the cubicles. That night, they dreamed of the house. In the dream, every room was dark except the dining room. The chair was pulled back, and something was sitting in it, facing the hallway, waiting. They never went back. Another story followed, almost immediately, like the silence was getting harder to sit in. It was about a security guard working overnight at an office building downtown. Empty floors, flickering lights, the kind of job where nothing ever happens until it does. Every night at exactly 2:17 a.m., the motion sensor on the 12th floor tripped. Every night, without fail. He checked it the first time, empty cubicles, silent halls, no broken windows, no signs of anyone. The second night, same thing. The third, he stopped going up. Instead, he watched the cameras. At 2:17, the feed from the 12th floor flickered just for a second. Then something appeared, tall, thin, standing between the cubicles, head tilted, not moving. It did not trigger the sensor by walking. It triggered it by turning its head. He quit the next morning. Years later, the building was demolished. They found deep scratches inside the walls on the 12th floor, at standing height, all facing the same direction. Someone swallowed hard and talked about a voicemail they never listened to until it was too late. Their phone had shown a missed call from their own number. They ignored it, assuming it was a glitch. Then another, and another. When they finally listened, the message was empty at first, just static, then breathing, then a whisper, "I'm outside." They checked the timestamp. The voicemail was dated 2 days in the future. That night, someone knocked on their door at exactly the same time as the timestamp. They did not answer. The knocking did not stop. Eventually, it moved to the window, then the bedroom door. In the morning, there were footprints in the frost, leading to the door, not away from it. The fire crackled lower, shadows stretching into the corners of the campsite. Someone mentioned the woods again. They always come back to the woods. A group of friends camping off-trail, far enough that no one would hear them. They woke up to footsteps circling the tents, slow, careful, like whoever it was did not want to be seen. They called out, laughed it off, told themselves it was an animal. Then the footsteps answered, perfectly matching their pace. When one of them stepped out with a flashlight, the forest reflected it back. Hundreds of eyes, not animal eyes, too high. Too still, all watching, they stayed in the tent until sunrise. When the light came, the woods were empty, except for footprints. Bare, human, leading away and then stopping, as if whoever made them had simply stood still and never moved again. Someone else spoke, voice shaking now, said they hated elevators. It happened late, alone, riding up to their apartment. The elevator stopped between floors, lights flickered. Then the emergency phone rang. They picked it up expecting a recorded message. Instead, a woman answered. She said, "You shouldn't be in here." The call cut. The lights went out. When they came back on, the elevator was full, people standing shoulder to shoulder. Silent, facing the doors, not breathing. When the doors opened, they were alone, back in the lobby. The building manager said the elevator had never stopped that night. The fire glowed faintly, a reminder that someone was still listening. The stories came faster now, almost as if the fire itself was urging them on. Someone talked about a town where the sirens go off every night at midnight. No warning, no announcements, just sirens. Everyone goes inside. Doors locked, lights off. If you look outside, you might see them. Figures in the street, standing, waiting. They do not move until the sirens stop. If you are outside when they start, you are not there in the morning. Another story followed about a child who spoke to someone in the corner of their room every night. Parents assumed it was imaginary, until the child described the man perfectly, scar across his face, missing fingers. The exact description of the man who died in the house decades earlier. The child said he liked to watch them sleep, said he stood closer every night, said last night he sat on the bed. The parents moved out. The new owners found indentations on the mattress, small, like handprints. By now, the fire had dropped to a low glow, shadows twisting across the faces of those gathered. Someone finally said the one thing that made the night feel colder than anything else. They said maybe ghosts are not the dead. Maybe they are something else, something that learned how to look like us, something that waits for quiet, for darkness, for moments like this. The embers glowed brighter, the woods stayed silent, and in that silence, it felt like someone else was listening now. Not telling a story, not remembering one, just waiting for the one you are living through. The fire popped once, twice, each sound echoing too loudly in the stillness. No one moved, no one breathed too loudly. It was as if the night itself had taken hold, pressing in, pressing close, reminding them that stories are not always stories. Sometimes they are warnings. And then someone realized there had been footsteps behind them the entire time. Slow, patient, bare, stopping just out of sight, waiting, watching. The fire sputtered again, sparks rising, dancing into the darkness, disappearing before they could land. Every hair on their arms stood straight, every instinct screamed, but no one dared to speak. The wind shifted in the trees, carrying a sound, or maybe it was just imagined, the softest whisper, almost indistinguishable from the night itself, telling them the same thing, that after midnight, nothing is as it seems. Nothing is safe, and the only thing you can do is listen and remember. The night stretched on, heavier than ever, shadows folding into themselves, stretching across the forest and the firelight, waiting to be noticed. Someone whispered about a cabin deep in the woods where every clock stops at midnight, not just inside the building, but for miles around. Travelers who enter say the air grows thick, their breath slow, and time becomes a memory rather than a reality. One man went in alone, just to retrieve something he forgot. He said the door closed behind him with a sound like a sigh, and when he turned back, the path he had followed into the cabin had vanished. Inside, the walls whispered his name. Each room he entered was slightly different from the last, and sometimes he glimpsed himself, standing in the corner, watching. He ran, he thought he escaped, until he realized the footprints he left behind led nowhere. They stopped midair, as if something had simply lifted him out of reality, and the forest outside had never existed. The fire flickered again, shadows leaping across the faces of everyone gathered around, stretching long fingers into the night. Another story came about a hospital abandoned for decades, the kind of place you see in nightmares and never in daylight. Nurses spoke of rooms that shift, halls that stretch endlessly, and beds that move when no one is around. A janitor who worked one night alone said the walls seemed to breathe like the building had lungs, and every step he took echoed, not against floors, but against something deeper, something alive. When he tried to leave, the exit was gone. All the doors, all the windows replaced with solid walls. By the time morning came, the building stood empty, but inside, the echoes of his footsteps remained, permanent, haunting anyone who dared enter after. Someone shivered, telling the story of a mirror that does not reflect you, but shows the last person who looked into it. A young woman bought it at a flea market, a beautiful ornate frame, smooth glass, and hung it in her bedroom. Each night she saw her reflection, then suddenly someone else of pale, cracked skin staring back. No movement, just watching. One night, it whispered. Not words, just a feeling, a warning, a weight on her chest. She smashed the glass. It did not break. The reflection smiled and waved from inside the shards, and every time she blinked, it was closer, closer, and always waiting. By now, the fire was nothing more than embers, the cold of the night seeping through clothing, pressing against the skin, settling into the bones. The woods still silent, but for a faint rustle that no one could place. Someone finally said it aloud, the thing that made the night feel endless. Maybe all these stories, maybe the monsters, the ghosts, the shadows were only the beginning. The true terror, the thing that would follow you home, sit beside your bed to whisper when no one is there, is knowing that you are never really alone, and that after midnight, the night has already decided who it will keep. And somewhere, just beyond the edge of the firelight, a shadow shifted, slow, patient, bare, and the dark whispered back, "We've been waiting." We'll leave it there until next time on After Midnight Files.